Why does every cultural conversation turn into a Taylor Swift conversation? Music discourse turns into Taylor Swift. Business discourse turns into Taylor Swift. Sports discourse turns into Taylor Swift. Gender discourse turns into Taylor Swift. And that alone tells us something very important. At some point, Taylor Swift shows up. And that's strange because there have been bigger vocalists, bigger scandals, bigger personalities, even bigger hits, but there's never been this. So today's question is quite simple, but the answer isn't. Because this isn't just normal celebrity behavior, it's not just about fame, it is a gravitational pull. As of 2026, Taylor Swift remains at the center of global cultural discourse, not by accident, but because of an almost unprecedented combination of commercial dominance, obsessive fan engagement, and symbolic weight. She has become a stand-in for debates far bigger than music. So for today's episode, we're asking a simple question with a complicated answer. Why can't we stop talking about Taylor Swift? And more importantly, what does talking about her or why does talking about her never actually feel like it's just about her? This is Losing the Plot. Okay, so this is a big episode, and I have a lot of work to do in today's episode. It's an episode that I wasn't sure I was going to do so early on, just because Taylor Swift is larger than life. She's the ultimate pop star of the present moment. So I honestly really do feel that I might do another one of this episode down the future, because she just keeps evolving and she keeps doing things so rapidly and in such different ways that I think that there will be an addendum to this. But I have been able to kind of organize my thoughts in a way that I think I'm satisfied with. And again, this podcast is an opportunity for us to have discourse. As much as I'm doing research and pulling things out, I really do want to hear what you guys think and what your opinions are and why they might differ from mine and things of that nature. But I finished watching The End of an Era, Taylor's latest docu-series on Disney Plus. Disney Plus is not sponsoring me, by the way, so if they want to, they can. But I finished watching that, and after that I kept throughout watching it, and obviously leading up to it, as you know, Taylor released Life of a Showgirl in October. If you didn't know, she released her most recent album, The Life of a Showgirl, in October, and that had a lot of discourse surrounding it as well. I mean, everything she does has a lot of discourse surrounding it, and I think one of the reasons that really spurred me to want to do an episode like this was back in, I forget what month this is, but I think in August, she announced that she had so in August she got engaged to Travis Kelce, football player, and her caption was something to the effect of, your English teacher is getting married to your gym coach, right? Because Taylor has this running thing with her fans where she says she would be an English teacher. She's an English teacher because one of the lyrics of her music are so detailed and things of that nature. She loves poetry, all of that. And that caption alone, I cannot tell you how many think pieces, how many hot takes people had about the caption alone of her announcing her engagement. And to me, I was just like, what is it? It really does get to a point where, like, you're just like, this is her announcing her engagement to her fiance or her boyfriend or whatever, and just the caption alone spread all these think pieces about how a billionaire should not co-opt English teachers, this and the other. And I was like, there's definitely something deeper here as to why she touches so delicately or so intimately into the public consciousness. So I really wanted to take that thought and run with it. So this is what I've kind of come up with. I think the first thing that I doing research for this episode has shown me is that there really will never be another Taylor Swift. And I think that's kind of similar. People say a lot and say often that, oh, there will never be another this, there will never be another that. But if we're being very honest, some of the people that we say there will never be another of, if you have enough of the right ingredients, you can replicate them. In fact, the archetype of the pop star as we know it today is an archetype that started, I would believe, I want to say around the 80s. and that's like I want to really give credit to like the Michael Jacksons, the Madonnas, the Janet Jacksons, the Tina Turners, people of that era, the Whitney, the Mariahs, right? That archetype of a pop star came from around that era, and we've seen since then they have been replicated. Maybe not the same artistic integrity with the same artistic integrity, or maybe not even with the same amount of talent, but in some way or the other, that archetype of a pop star has been reiterated time and time and time again, even down to the archetype of a boy band, the archetype of a girl group. Some of these archetypes and some of these archetypes. Oh, have I been saying archetype? I've meant to say archetypes for the past how many? What if I've been saying archetypes? That's not what I meant. I'm sorry, y'all. Archetypes. Jeez. Have been replicated over and over and over again. Just because, like, with those kinds of archetypes, I need a new word, but those kind of archetypes, there is something that if you have enough of the source and enough of manufacturing from the studio or whatever, you can kind of you won't make a new Janet Jackson, but you can make something that is very inspired by her and that can float in the ethos of it, right? Which is why sometimes we say that new artists are the daughters or the sons of certain people, because they have these archetypes that can, with enough work, like can kind of be replicated in a way. But with Taylor, there is something about her and the way that she has risen that is so specific to her that it's in my thinking and in research for this episode, one of my things is that I don't think we'll ever see another one. And I want to also explore that in this episode, like why would there never be another one? But before we go any further, if you like deep dives like this, I want you to pause for a second, follow the show, subscribe wherever you are listening to. And if you have thoughts, like I mentioned before, disagreements, theories, I really want to hear them in the comments. Like I really want to hear them. I want to know, especially for this episode, because everybody has everybody has some type of opinion about Taylor Allison Swift. So I really would like to hear those in the comment sections, whatever those are. And another reason why I feel like this conversation is something I want to have right now is because in episode 1 we talked about how classic albums are decisions and not accidents. Sorry, that was episode 2. My bad. I couldn't go to the first episode, so we'll leave AG alone. But in episode 2, we talked about how classic albums are not accidents, and we broke down the blockbuster album. And then last week we talked about 2013 being the year that the year that the music industry kind of snapped and the old machine collapsed. And I think that adding this episode to kind of the framework of the conversation we've been having, this episode is kind of what happens when all the logic that we've talked about in the past episodes gets applied to one person. Because Taylor Swift did not just survive every industry shift we've discussed in this past episode. She has absorbed them. She's been in the music industry for a while now, so all these things that we kind of discussed leading up to now, she has gone through, survived, and become a billionaire out of, which is really, really saying something. So she's mastered these things. So let's start with my core thesis for today. My core thesis is that Taylor Swift is not just a pop star, she's a singularity. She's a cultural object that is so dense that it bends everything else around it. That is from everything from music to business to fandom to identity to morality to capitalism. I think that her career is fundamentally unrepeatable because of all those things, and not because other people are not talented. I don't want to start the Stan Wars, but I don't think the fact that we cannot replicate her or in my thinking we cannot replicate her is a function of talent. And I don't think it's because no one else has fused songwriting intimacy like she has. But the difference is that no one else has fused songwriting intimacy with, and here's the theory, with industrial scale strategy at this level for this long at exactly the right moment in history. And one thing that, when you're talking about musical trends and talking about the music industry, one thing that I always losing the plot. I'm about to lose the plot. I think this is my first plot I'm losing for this episode. But I think that one thing I always think about often is that is it that is it the artist that is the thing, or is it the moment in history that is the thing? So what I mean by that is that Taylor Swift being Taylor Swift at this point in time, would she have been able to be Taylor Swift if she had come earlier than she came? Or would she have been able to have this success if she had come a bit later than she arrived? Because it's so hard when someone has a career that's this huge and is meeting the moment in this way. It's so hard to imagine what they would have been like if just one of those things was not where it is. So it's just something I think about often, and it's not, I don't really have an answer for it, but something I always think about, that this exact moment in history that we are in, is it because, like, how do we arrive at it, and is it replicable in other parts of history? Now I'm arguing not, but I think about that for other people, not just Taylor Swift. But yeah, this confessional songwriting that she has kind of merged with Fortune 500 level strategy at this precise moment where our monoculture has collapsed and the internet has taken over, it seems very specific to her, and because we are now kind of dead to all these changes, I by the end of the episode, I think I want you to understand not just how Taylor Swift became unavoidable, but the conditions that made it possible for her to exist as she does right now, and why those conditions would make it, why those conditions would not allow somebody else to exist like the way she's existing. I hope that made sense. Okay, if it didn't, very confusing. Well, I don't think it's confusing. I think it's pretty straightforward. I think she's singular. I think that she's able to meet her songwriting style and her artistry with using industry scale strategy, which just means that she's able to take the kind of strategy that you would use to start a company, a Fortune 500 company, and she takes those strategies and applies them to music and artistry, right? So that's why I think that she played the game, but also why the game she played does not exist anymore for anybody else to play. So that's those are my thinking. And again, let me lose the point a little bit and say that it is very essential. Most artists anyway, know that they're a brand and they're a business, but not every artist walks and acts like it. And if you want to reach a certain level of success and viability, and no matter what level of artistry you are in, big, medium, small, whatever, if you don't treat it like it's a business, if you don't treat it like a brand, and it's not even like you're a brand, you are a brand and you are a business, but if you don't walk in that, you might spend longer in the phase of your career that you are in as opposed to moving on up. Now, I've never won a Grammy and I don't have a song on the Billboard Music Awards, so I'm not talking down to anybody, obviously. But I think something to think about when we're talking about these big names, it is unavoidable that they get to where they are, they become the big names that they are because of how they treat themselves, how they position themselves as brands, as artists. And there's a saying that I love that says the artist always knows, like the legends always know their legends before we know. And it's working, it's like, I'm not in that place yet, I'm not that person yet, but already being that person and put yourself in that place way before the rest of the world catches up is so important, and something that we'll see throughout Taylor's career. So let's start with Taylor's career. This is not a, mind you, I have a very specific job to do on this episode, so this is not going to be a Taylor Swift docu-series where we break down where she grew up and everything. Those things will come up, but that's not, so just don't look to this to be a thing where you expect that, is what I want to say. So the thing where I want to start from is how she started branding herself earlier in her career. And I was there for this. Well, should I give my own Taylor Swift lore? Okay, actually I should. Let me give you my Taylor Swift lore. Okay, so when I was growing up as a kid, as a child, we only listened to gospel music in my house. If it's not Kirk Franklin, Tope Alabi, I don't know who else, Larry Teriba, like if it wasn't gospel, it wasn't getting played in Patrick and Sarah's house. That's how that. Oh, the only other caveat to that was Disney Channel music. So most people that know me personally know I'm a big Disney kid, and that's why, because if I wasn't listening to gospel music, I could only listen to like whatever Demi Lovato, Selena Gomez, the Jonas Brothers were doing on Disney Channel. That was my kind of my music, how I got into music, and I was in church choir. However, so I entered a high school, and shout out to my high school, St. Peter's Prep in New Jersey, pride and glory, right? So I entered high school. I was what? I think I was 12 going on 13. I was really young for high school. And I took this introduction to music class. This introduction to music class is going to come up a lot as I talk to you guys and get to know you guys more, because it really, that class, it's good to pay. It's good to pay good money for your children's education, because that introduction to music class really set me on the part of music, not just to make music, but just to also understand the music industry. So in that music introduction to music class, we had an assignment. The assignment was to write a song, and I was really hyped about it. I was an A student. I really wanted to do well, but around that time, the Kanye West Taylor Swift saga had happened. And for those of you who don't know, at the, I believe it was 2009 VMAs, we kind of would have to, because that was when I was in ninth grade. Um, Taylor Swift and Beyonce and some other people were nominated for Music Video of the Year, I believe. And mind you, the music video that that Beyonce was nominated for was "Single Ladies," which just "Single Ladies" in that year was a huge song, a huge video. Like, it actually was a very, groundbreaking video at the time that it came out. And Taylor Swift was nominated for "You Belong With Me," I believe, was the video she was nominated for, and Taylor Swift won. Taylor Swift won the award, and I think Kanye might have had a drink too many. He's friends with Beyonce and Jay-Z at the time. And Kanye goes on the stage, and I think everybody knows the famous, "Taylor, congratulations, I'm going to let you finish, but Beyonce had one of the greatest music videos of all time." And, that happened. So, as a result of that, everyone was talking about it. Mind you, again, I didn't listen to secular music or anything that was not gospel music at the time. And I also didn't watch TV the way everybody else watched TV in my class. We watched, like, news and Disney Channel and like TBN. It was real strict in my household. Like, really, like, we didn't do anything that was not, so I didn't really know about this controversy at the time, which is kind of insane, but that shows you how kind of far removed I was from popular culture. And then my teacher was like, everyone's talking about this Taylor Swift Kanye West thing. So we had a class on songwriting using Taylor Swift's music and Kanye West's music. So he used Love Lockdown and I think Love Story to show us how songs were written, the pop structure, the intro, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, out kind of thing, and production. Like, it was a very detailed class, like on music. And so he used Kanye West and Taylor Swift. So that really set me on, like, oh, like, this is interesting. And since then, I kind of been following her career kind of with those ears. And I think by that time, she wasn't a newbie in the industry per se. I want to say she already had 2 albums out by that time. So she was, she was coming up. She was coming up. Definitely not the mega woman that she is today, but she was on her way. Okay. That would have been the Fearless. So before Speak Now, and then after that, I think so. I started following her career from then till present day. So that's kind of like my own Taylor Swift lore as to what. And I always say that I really respect her songwriting. I respect her as an artist. I'm not here to bash her in any way. I wouldn't say I'm a Swiftie, because I wouldn't say that. I feel like that would be blasphemous to call myself a Swiftie. But I do respect her, and I respect her music and her artistry. Not everything is for me. Not all her records are for me. Obviously, I've done an episode of 1989, which I think for me that was a very important album for me as an artist. But yeah, that's my Taylor Swift thing. Let's get back to the episode. Okay, back. Okay, so the foundation. And I think I wanted to say that because I wanted to kind of place where I'm starting my conversation. I'm starting my conversation from, I want to say 2009, post Kanye West. After her album, and mind you, Miss Mama's, her first album came out 2006, and she has put out an album every other year since then, basically. So she has Taylor Swift, Fearless, Speak Now, Red, 1989, Reputation, Lover, Folklore, Evermore, Midnight, Touch Up Always Department, Life of a Showgirl. And Life of a Showgirl is her 12th studio album. Her first album was 2006. And just to lose the plot a little bit on that, is that consistency matters, you guys. Like, there is just a certain level of success that you will not get to. Again, not all the albums have been for me, but also not all the albums have been for everybody. But if you keep going at it, no matter what it is, there's no way you will not land on hits. There's no way you will not land on the moments, just the habit of doing something over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. It attunes you to that thing, whatever that thing is, in a way that nobody else that is doing that is people that are not doing it at a level which you are doing it cannot relate. Same thing I would say for kind of Rihanna as well. Like Rihanna is not putting out music anymore, but honey, when Rihanna was putting out music, she was cranking those records out almost yearly. Like it was insane. But again, the success equals to that, because what they may not have, or people may not think they have in talent or whatever, the consistency matters. And I think that's something I'm trying to teach myself as well, is that no matter what it is, if you keep throwing stuff at the wall, something is going to have to stick. Now Taylor is a billionaire now, so something definitely stuck. And that 2009 2008 era, I think, is the foundation for this conversation, because that was the not so cool kid and the master narrative. So Taylor Swift's Real Junior wasn't hits. It was always positioning. Now, I'm saying Taylor Swift's Real Junior wasn't always hits. She has hits. And let's not get it twisted. Silly rabbit tricks are for kids. But Taylor Swift's most important decision came before the hits. She always positioned herself as a reliable narrator to her fans. So from Tim McGraw, which I believe is her debut single, she wasn't selling mystique, she was always selling access. And one of the things that that is in the world that we live in now is access. Before now, the kids ain't gonna know this. The kids ain't gonna know this. But back in the day, for you to know anything about your favorite celebrity, you had to be a detective. You saw these people sometimes, but now we live in a world where celebrities are online often. They are going on IG lives. They are doing these insane press runs where they go to every Tom, Dick, and Harry's podcast. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but I'm just saying that Taylor was that before it became cool to do that. Before it wasn't a thing to do that. Before it was a thing you expected celebrities to do. She was already doing that. So you see how she was already meeting a moment that did not exist. So that now that the moment is so commonplace, we are living in a post Taylor Swift world. Her songs always felt like diary entries that you were not supposed to read, which made her listeners feel trusted, because more often than not, her target audience at the time, which had been teenage girls, or I don't hope it's not problematic to say, but I want to say almost teenage girls for sure, teenage girls all over the world, but also like teenage girls that look like her. And she made songs about things that they were experiencing at that age. And mind you, she had chosen, because she had access and privilege, to do country music. So she lived in Pennsylvania on a Christmas farm. Her family was well to do, and she was like, I want to be a country musician. My grandma was an opera singer. I want to do this. I want to be like Faith Hill. And they literally moved to Nashville to start her music career because they had the funds and the means to. But country music at that time was not really a market that was created or made for teenage girls that look like Taylor even. But she found a way to make her songs from the very beginning, from songs like Tim McGraw to You Belong With Me. She wasn't singing at you, she was singing to you, like a friend whispering secrets. So that diaristic style did two things. It created intimacy and it created trust. The intimacy is something that she's been able to, some would say she has a parasocial relationship with her fans. And, when people say that as a bad thing, I'm like, fans are going to have a parasocial relationship with people that they love anyways. You look at Michael Jackson shows back in the days where people were fainting before he went on stage. That happens as a result of a parasocial relationship. But this person has become so larger than life that you can't believe that they're right in front of you. So that was always going to, that was always going to happen. But she was able to find a way to take that diaristic intimacy and create something that was stronger than fiction, or stronger than fandom rather, something that would create belief, which would make her listeners feel trusted. So that was, I think I would say, level one, is that I'm your friend, I know what you're going through, you're not cool, neither am I. But buy my music, and listen to my music, because when you listen to my music, you feel heard, you feel seen. So fans didn't just like the music, they believed her version of events. And belief, my friends, is everything. That belief is what moves us to the next level, which I think is the underdog identity, right? So I believe you, I feel close to you, but you're also an underdog like me. That underdog ethos is there, and Taylor leans into that because she's leaning into, like, I'm not the so-called kid. And I want to say that I'll talk about Taylor Swift's age at this time. Taylor Swift was like a teenager when she was doing all of this. And I want to say kind of problematically, or I don't want to say it's not ironic. So I want to say almost problematically of the music industry. Girls of Taylor's age that would come up at the industry at that same time, in that same era, or before then, were always kind of sexualized. Were always kind of sex symbols. I'm thinking specifically about Britney Spears, but even I'm thinking about Fifth Harmony as well. I mean, Fifth Harmony is later than Taylor Swift, but like, you had these younger girls, teenage girls that were singing and performing very sexually explicit acts. They had to have choreography down. Taylor wouldn't do choreography till much later in her career. So there was also this, like, I'm not Britney Spears. I'm not this larger than life person. I am not an unreachable icon, because that would matter. And it would matter because when she would start to get critique, like, you don't write your own songs, or you can't even sing, or whatever, that doesn't matter to our audience, because that's not why they listen to her. They listen to her because she has created intimacy and trust with them. They listen to her because they believe her relatability, that she's not a spectacle and she's not unreachable. So when her fans come up, and even the Kanye West thing, when all of those things happen, to them it is framed not as a criticism of her, but they see it as bullying. You are bullying our Taylor, someone that is just like me and the girl next door, and this and the other. So when that framing of criticism of her, even earlier in her career, reads to her fans as bullying, and so she's able to take that framing and galvanize her fan base into a defensive army. Even as she has become the most powerful person in the room, she still remains a victim in their story. And this is a critique that Taylor is going to face later on in her career, where it's going to be like, yo, I think with the life of a showgirl especially, people are like, yo, Miss Mamas, you are the biggest pop star, I think, of all time. You're a billionaire, this and the other. We don't believe that you're the victim. But this is outside voices. I don't think this is the voice within her fan base. But when she writes about high school in recent history, like in this past year, and she still has some of that victim, I don't want to call it mentality, that just seems very boring and lazy, but some of that framing, that us against little old me, like, who's scared of little old me thing, to the wider audience, it kind of reads like, Miss Mamas, you're not, we don't believe that you're the victim. But again, that is the wider audience. The wider audience is now what is keeping her fed. Her fan base, her army, they still relate to her in that way, because she has done such a good job of taking the music from just being the music to being a movement of whatever happens to me is what's happening to you, right? And that's not it's not accidental. It very much isn't. It is a result of narrative discipline. But that's not where it ends with Taylor, because now we've talked about all these levels of her. She's not the cool kid. She creates intimacy. She creates trust. She's accessible in a time when it wasn't as commonplace. What she does next after that is something that I'm also trying to learn. Is you take all these things. People like to be given assignments. People like to have something to do, right? So she makes her fandom participatory. So she's not like, okay, you know what? You and I are the same. Both of us, we get each other. I get you, you get me. These songs that are about me are really about you. Let's make this world together, right? Let us participate with me as I build this career, which is really your career. My wins are really your wins. And how does she do this? She has hidden messages. Everyone knows about Taylor's Easter eggs that she puts in her promotional material to engage with her fans. I forget what album this was, but she had secret sessions. I want to say it was 1989 or Red, that she had secret sessions for the listening. So fans were able to listen to these albums, so she would go like to different parts of the country and host, like, for her diehard fans, be with them in the room, play the music for them, and they could react to them there in the room with her. And again, some of those people, she also is an artist. There's some artists and there's some popular artists that they abandon their fans as they get bigger and they get more popular. So they move from era to era with different fans and leave some behind. Taylor doesn't do that. She goes out of her way to make sure that people that have been with her from the beginning, all they do is add more people. Add more people to the bus, but never leaving anybody behind. So that when you're anybody that she's 36 now, so people that have listened to her since she started at her same age still listen to her, but some of them have daughters, they have cousins, they have nieces. She gives them something to do to engage with them. So she didn't just have fans, she gave them jobs. They can be decoders, they can be historians, they can be defenders, they can be investors. But to be a Swiftie, which is very, I would say, particular to her, and one of the reasons why she is how she is, especially capital wise, is that to be a Swiftie is to do something. There's always something for her fans to do, and I think that that poses a good question. Like, do you guys think fandom should be passive or participatory, and where's the line with that? For her, it definitely works because the fans get used to always having something to do, whether it's buying something, whether it's finding a clue in a music video, whatever. It's part of the experience of being a Swiftie. And I want to say also that Taylor Swift's fan base uniquely positions her to be able to do this. This is my own theory, that because her fan base has privilege, because most of our fans look like her. Not all of them, right? Don't get me wrong. There are Swifties in Africa, Swifties in Asia, Swifties all over the world. You don't do something like the Eras tour with fans that only look like you. But the core of her fans, the fans that got her to be where she is, look like her. And those people, they have disposable income. Oh, let's talk about it. Not everybody has fans that have the same level of disposable income as Taylor Allison Swift. And again, going back to her always giving her fans something to do, if I have money and you say you seem to have like a $2 left, you trying to give me some of that, your $2, give me $1. And like, you know what, I love you, we're the same person, I listen to your music, here's my $1, thank you so much, and always thanks her fans, ad nauseum, and always like, I appreciate my fans, thank you for this, this means something deeper, this is something incentive for the fans to keep supporting, right? Now I want to move on to the next part of this conversation, so we've talked about her branding from the early days, how that engagement is unique to her, and how and I'm hoping that if you're a musician and you listen to this, you are picking up the learnings from this on how you can apply some of these things to your own. Again, it is my theory that we cannot see another Taylor Swift, but prove me wrong. Like, be the person that proves me wrong, and be like, take her lessons learned, and be like, you know what, I'm going to find a way to meet the moment the way she has, and let's see what works for you. But even if you don't become the next Taylor Swift, or you don't become as big as you are, you will reach a level of success that is dazzling, only because the principle behind how she became who she is are things that that there are ways to replicate and will definitely yield results. So we talked about her branding. Let's talk about the music. Let's talk about the music and the strategy behind the music. I don't say that the music is the least important thing in talking about Taylor Swift, because it definitely isn't. I think she's a great artist. Everybody has their opinion. I think she's, for what she does and how she does it, that's her thing. But the thing about Taylor Swift that I think is important to always remember, and I don't think anybody doesn't think about this, is that she's what happens when the alchemy of artistry meeting industrial strategy. Now, in my intro, I talked about that Fortune 500 frame of mind that you must have as a musician if you want to reach a certain level of success. Most artists release albums. Taylor Swift releases arguments. Each album is a thesis of something. Red is about emotional contradiction. 1989 is about reinvention. Folklore is about escape. Tortured Poets is about collapse without resolution. Life of a Showgirl is about, falling in love. And also, Taylor Swift and Beyonce do this thing that I think is so interesting to me, where like a controversy will happen now, and I mean Beyonce more than Taylor, but they both do it, where something will happen now and they won't have a comment, they won't react. but they will be in that studio with their response. 2 years later, a year later, a song will come out in the album, or a line will come out in the song in the album where they address it. So these albums, they don't just live in playlists, they live in discourse. Like, I want to say that one more time. I really want to say that one more time. Most people release albums. Taylor releases arguments. Each album is a thesis. Red is about emotional contradiction. 1989 is about reinvention. Folklore is about escape. Tortured Poets is about collapse without resolution. These albums don't just live in playlists, they live in discourse. And our reinventions are not trend hopping, they are always plot devices. So by 2026, the year of our Lord 2026, she has made something very clear. She's not going away. She had an interview last year. I think it was Colbert or maybe Seth Meyers, one of the late night shows, where she was like, people are always like, you are overexposed, you have done this, you have done that, you have done this, you have done that. Go away. And she's like, you know what? I'm not, because I don't want to. Which I think is very, very interesting. But it makes sense as an artist who sees albums as a conversation that she's having not only with her fans, but with the general public. She has openly modeled her career on longevity, not mystique. So from day one, someone, there are artists who have enwrapped and engrossed their artistry in mystique. And so because of that, they really have to disappear and come back and go away. But if you have made the thesis of your career that you're relatable, and you're not mysterious, your output will reflect that, which is why Taylor has new original work back to back to back, because she always has something to say, and she has trained her audience, her core fan base, to always expect something. So talking about Death of a Showgirl, which came out late last year, late 2025, October 2025, and it sparked a lot of discourse about fame and performance and emotional exhaustion, even the re-recordings as well, where she had to re-record her older catalog, because before she got able to buy her masters back, she wanted to record her music so that she would have control of her masters. All of that was charting and keeping the conversation of the masters alive. And this constant reinvention and constant putting out of work is how Taylor Swift turns corporate strategy into storytelling. So, like I mentioned before, she doesn't just trend hop on her reinventions. She thinks about them in detail. As a little girl, this is why I think she's impressive, because even as a little girl, she chose country music, right? She told her parents, "Mom and Dad, we going to Nashville. Yeah, pack up. Austin." But she has a little brother, Austin Swift. Austin, you too. Okay? We going to Nashville, and I'm going to be... I don't know what this accent is. I'm so sorry. I don't know what this accent is. But let's stick with it. We going to Nashville. I'm going to become a pop star. A country star. She wanted to be... And, she had a reason as a little girl to think that she wanted to be like some of the people that she was seeing. But even that choosing... Because she could have chosen to follow pop. Like... She could have been like, you know what, I want to be Britney. But she saw something about the country star archetype, and she was like, you know what, that's what I want to be. And then when the time came, she moved from country to pop, which wasn't accidental. She has, I feel like, again, the great artists always do, they are great before time. I think that she has this internal knowing of when it's time to shift the tides. And she doesn't ever depart from her core persona crazily, but she makes pointers to do that. Even when she moved from pop, from the 1989 Reputation, Lover era to indie folk, that also wasn't accidental. These pivots, these plot devices, they function like season finales and season premieres, and which each time that she does this, some old critics will fall off and some new audiences will arrive, and the narrative will continue resetting. Okay, now let's talk about business. I've talked briefly about the masters disputes, where so essentially what happened. Let me talk about that a bit deeper with a bit more context, as the best as I can. Please, my hope is that when you listen to this podcast, you are also researching information, and I'm not saying nonsense. So always listen and always do your own research. Very important. I'm a big advocate of doing that. Do your own research. Yeah, but essentially, the record label that she was on before, she was like basically bringing in the bulk of the money of that record label. Like she was the record label. Um, I think the record label was closing or something, and the record label auctioned off her masters to another company, and they didn't give her a chance to buy her masters. And I think the reason why for that was because obviously I think they were trying to get the deal to go through, and the other company was like, we will get this deal to go through, but we want those Taylor Swift masters. And she didn't get a chance to buy her masters. And what she did that was so intelligent was that she didn't frame it as a contractual issue. She framed it as a moral war, good versus evil, artist versus system. And she started to do recordings of some of her albums. She didn't do for all of them because by the time last year would come around, she was able to buy her masters back. But she did what she called Taylor's version of Fearless, Red, Speak Now, and 1989. And honestly, I think it's interesting that those were the albums that she re-recorded before she didn't have to record anymore, because those would be the albums. Those would be the albums. Like if someone had to pick, in my thinking, if you had to pick 4 Taylor Swift albums that you should re-record, it would be those ones because of the material. On Fearless, Red, Speak Now, in 1989, she really, like, in my opinion, recorded the best ones, and she was like, can we try and buy the records back? You know? And of course her fans did a madness where the re-recorded version of these albums streamed and sold so high because, you know, I forget what year it was, but she kind of single-handedly revived the record industry, the record, like what the record you put on a record player, the vinyl industry, because of how much our fans engage with that. Anyways, framing that contractual issue as a moral war definitely engaged her fans on a deeper level for them to purchase the records. But also, what she did was that she made Taylor's version not about nostalgia but about reclamation. Buying the album became activism, kind of like I was telling you guys earlier, that finding a deeper way to get her fans to engage with something. She made capitalism to her fans in that moment feel righteous. And yes, some people will say she exploits her fans, but I kind of disagree. Like I said before, I think what she does is give them something to do. And if you give your fans more things to do that is, you know, quality to them, or in the case of this masters dispute, something of activism where they feel like this is activism on their part, then they will engage. And I think that that's the lesson, one of the things that separates her from her peers. It's a lesson that her peers keep missing. And I think I want to ask you guys, do you guys think that Taylor Swift's business genius is empowering artists or redefining exploitation? I don't want to be the one to, I think something that, it's just something to think about. I would like to know what you guys think about that, honestly. Because I'll just keep it as that. I'll keep it at that. And of course, apart from her recording our old catalog, one thing that she does as well that is really good is this Eras framework. And do I want to talk about the Eras tour today? I just feel like the Eras tour is its own thing. Like, in terms of someone that loves live performance, I think that deserves its own episode. But the Eras framework, the person that I think of the most when I think of an artist in the Eras is Rihanna. Because whenever Rihanna had a new album, Rihanna was a new person. And it takes, I think Madonna might be, honestly, Madonna is the OG of redefinition by album. But even more so is Rihanna. Every album is a different person. Everything is a different thing. I'm new, you're new in this new music. And Taylor has some of that in a way that is different from Rihanna, where she's not a different person, but she is telling you something in a different way, slightly. You know, there's a core tenet of her songwriting and her diaristic way that must be present in things, but always with a bit more of edge or whatnot. But the Eras framework, what it does is it prevents stagnation. The audience never gets bored because the narrative keeps moving. So this is where some people think that, okay, some people might argue that this is overexposure. And some people can argue that it is control, but me, I think that both can be true. Some people can get longevity in their career through restraints, but again, saturation or oversaturation is might be the way to get there faster. I hope like you guys are following me, and the thing about these things that we've talked about is, again, all these things lined up together is how we get to Taylor Swift, the billionaire musician. You can take bits and parts of this that apply to you and apply to your artistry as an artist, because not all of this will apply to you, and not all of this is something that everybody wants to even go after, nor should everybody go after them. But the ones that you take into consideration to help you in your career, I think if you do, you will see results for sure. But also, this is why I think we can't stop talking about all these little things, all these little puzzles are why we can't stop talking about her, and why the conversation about Taylor Swift never stops. And now I want to get to on a kind of like on a deeper level of this conversation, which is that talking about Taylor Swift is really about Taylor Swift. I'll say that one more time. Talking about Taylor Swift is really about Taylor Swift. She's always a proxy. And this is not specific to her, I don't think. But we do this thing with celebrities, but with pop stars especially, where we use them as avatars and we project onto them who we are as the people at the time that we are. And that's honestly, it's their job. It's kind of like part of what they sign up for when they become these larger than life figures, is to be proxies for them, to be for Kim Kardashian's family to be how we talk about cultural appropriation, for Beyonce to be how we talk about feminism, whatever. We use these people and their personalities. They are human beings just like us, because we have made them larger than life as a society in our culture and our thinking. They can now be how we talk about things that we see in our daily lives. So much like pop stars of her own stature, Taylor is a proxy. She's a proxy for debates about ownership, female ambition, fame, victimhood, wealth, art versus commerce. The list goes on and it goes on, right? So that is something that is not particularly unique to her, but it's something that I think helped me. I think it's the answer to my question that I was asking at the beginning of the episode, like, why do we talk about her so often? And the answer is that we are not really talking about her. We're talking about something else, but we use her as the vehicle to talk about those things. And because she won't go away, because she's always in front of us, she gives us plenty of material to use to discuss those things. Then there's the billionaire paradox. She became a billionaire primarily through music and touring, not makeup lines, which is important, not tech startups, yet she still wears that underdog costume. Well, I hope calling it a costume doesn't sound derogatory, because that's not my intention, but she still wears the underdog persona, right? And one of the revolutionary ways that she's been able to get this billionaire paradox through music has to be through the sales of vinyls, CD, bonus tracks, and if you're on Twitter, say it with me, multiple variants. The multiple variants thing, she really changed the game with that. Pre-Taylor Swift, when someone drops an album, they drop a regular album and a deluxe edition of album. So you have two albums. But it is usually understood that the cover for that first album, the standard edition, is the cover of the album. But post-Taylor Swift, one album has like 10 covers. And I'm not exaggerating when I say Mama be cranking out those album variants. There's the 3 a.m. version of Midnights. There's the Life of a Showgirl, but she's not a star version. Like, there are so many variants of the same album, and her fans are gonna buy every single one up. And she's even one-upped that strategy, honestly, where she puts out the same album. Remember, she puts one bonus track or one voice memo on it, give it a new title, call it a different name. Then she says this variant is going to be available for only the next 24 hours. So if you're gonna get it, you get it for the next 24 hours, and they will get it. Again, we're seeing the through line here with her always giving her fans something to do, but also she can do this because her fans have the disposable income to facilitate for it. So it is this exact commission that makes her a music billionaire. And some people have called it greedy, and some people have called it genius. I think the truth is way simpler. I think that she just understands her audience. There are many of them, and they have the income to do so. Now, I'm not speaking about this on an ethical level. I'm just speaking about it just purely through for discourse and for understanding it. I'll let you decide what if we should even have billionaires. That's not what we're talking about today. But the artist first, and her being an artist first with corporation level power is a contradiction that is unavoidable, but it also is endlessly discussable. Like, see how in this episode I've not done a deep dive into where she grew up, the lyrics of the song. I've not even gone to any track listing to give my thoughts. I'm just talking about how she moves, and we've had so much to talk about, right? We've had so much to talk about. So she does position herself, because like she mentioned last year when Life of Sugar was getting so much hate, that in her industry, if people are talking about you, then you're winning, because conversion is capital. It really makes that saying about any publicity is good publicity. In this day and age, it is relevant as heck. Any publicity is good publicity, because that overexposure is really how you get the coins in, because they like you, they hate you, they're talking about you, they're streaming the music, they are engaging with the content, and it's bringing in revenue. I don't think I can end this episode or move on to the next part of the episode without saying that while our strategy and all the things we've talked about are very important, there are some things that have put her on this path that no longer exist and are closed, which is an added level to why I think her success is not replicable. So Taylor came up during the era of pre-streaming monoculture, like we've talked about before. That monoculture was very important. She used country radio to get to where she was, which is where she got the core of her audience, and was able to use that genre specifically to be able to position herself where she positioned herself before she became a pop star. Physical sales, mastering the use of MySpace, Tumblr, Instagram, and I guess now TikTok ? But all of those things allowed her to build loyalty before fragmentation. Then after she deployed it, right? So you can't really engineer those kind of things now. And this is where, like I've mentioned before, like I'm not. Please don't take any of this as me making a case against her. I'm making a case for why she's as successful as she is, why we can't stop talking about her, and why no one else can really pull off what she has pulled off, right? And this is where our privilege matters. She has parents of means, they support her, so she has financial stability. Let me tell you this right now. There are some ideas you will not have if you have not eaten. Can I get in it? There are some ideas, there are some strategies, there are some thoughts, there are some things you cannot think about. And even if you think about, you cannot execute at the level of which has executed things if you are not in a family of means. So yes, she's hardworking. Yes, she cranks things out. Yes, she has a mastermind and she's a strategic genius. But all of that is furthered or allowed to shine and thrive in a family, in an environment where you can afford things. Your daddy can get you on a plane when you need to get on a plane. Your outfits are nice. You can have a vocal coach. All those things matter in the making of a music billionaire. They really do. In making of a Taylor Swift. And I've also noticed something about Taylor that I've noticed with Beyonce and Ariana Grande, which is that also those are also two women who come from privilege, right? They are very close with their mothers, and I don't think I want to get into that today. I just feel like I want to just say it, and I'll probably think more on that thoughts. But those Beyonce, Ariana Grande, and Taylor Swift are very, very close with their mothers, and I want to think that that's not. It's not. There's something there about being a larger than life female celebrity but having a mother that is close to you and works with you and is part of your world. I feel like I will get into that at some point. My thoughts around that has not fully formed, but when they do, you guys will know. But now let's talk about the Eras tour. Again, I don't know if this is the episode to talk about the Eras tour the way I want to talk about the Eras tour, but we'll just briefly talk about its record-breaking revenue, cultural dominance, economic impact on the cities that she visited for the tour. Like, she would literally go into a tour, go into a city to do the Eras tour, and she would change the economy of that city because how many people will be coming in and going out. This is not unique to her. Other artists of her stature, which increasingly they are less and less and less. When they go to these cities, they have those impacts. But the reason why the Eras tour was this record-breaking cultural topic is that she didn't just tour albums. From the set list to the costumes to the staging to the stage itself, it was a memory. It was a journey down memory lane. She toured memory. She toured. This is what we've built, you and I. And if you watch that, the end of an era docuseries on Disney Plus, she really gets into that. And yes, she gets hate. And this is, I think, also very important for people that want to be the level of Taylor's caliber. She gets hate and she doesn't care. Now, when I say she doesn't care, obviously there are things that will hurt her feelings and things that will, probably make her have a bad day. And maybe she doesn't go down the entire comment section, go all the way down. But having indifference at a certain level of fame and fortune is power. She has a quote from last year where she talks about how she treats her attention like an expensive fragrance, and you don't just spray an expensive fragrance anyhow. You think about where you want to put it, and I think it's a very important strategy and a way of thinking for that level of success. You can't respond to everything, or you shouldn't respond. You could. I'm not going to name. She who will go unnamed responds to everything, but I'm not going to name her on this podcast. She's not going to get any screen time or podcast time from me. You can. It's not a smart thing to do. It is not something that I would advise. Taylor Swift generates backlash at the same scale she generates devotion. So for every hate that she's able to balance that out in her own world. So I want to go down a list of a couple of things that she has been getting backlash for in the past year, which is, this is not just everything, but overexposure, her jet usage, her political silence or speech. She gets backlash when she's silent. She gets backlash when she says something. Football appearances, feminism, white woman feminism, as some people like to call it. She's scrutinized in ways few celebrities are, which is kind of like part, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, it's part of the job description, and much of it circles, I think, around one uncomfortable question. Are y'all ready for my question? Would we react the same way if she were a man? Now, now I want to make a clear distinction between my question and girl boss feminism. Right? I'm not, again, I'm trying to be as neutral as possible here. I'm not holding up the poster for girl boss feminism, but honestly, when I think about some of the things that, again, talking about why we can't stop talking about Taylor Swift, some of the things that we talk about her for, there's no, I should say there's no way, but in my thinking, if she were a man, some of these things would not be conversations. And I'm not saying y'all hate women. I'm saying, okay. Again, I'm not making a conversation or a case for girl boss feminism, but we do talk about Taylor Swift and ungodly. Like, it's kind of insane how much we talk about her, right? So yeah, some of the critique I think is valid. Some of her critique about maybe that her female rage writing is immature. It's interesting, but sometimes it does feel, I will say that sometimes it does feel like what people have a problem with is that she refuses to shrink. It does feel like that. It does feel like that to me sometimes. Sometimes. I'll leave that for y'all to to chew on. Okay, I'll leave that for y'all to chew on. But it does beg to, like, I think the question I really want people to think about when thinking about your suit, or the next time you have is if an opinion about your suit and you want to tell the world about and you're all fired up about, I think I want you to think about it as, at what point does this criticism become projection? Am I criticizing this woman or am I projecting onto her? It's just something that I think everyone should just think about. Engage with that however you will find interesting. Again, we've talked about why some of the ways that she came up cannot be repeated, and we've talked about the things that she has done that can be repeated, but may not give the same result because of the way she did them to match the moment, right? So I think we're coming to the end of the episode. Like, I really, again, like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, this is not going to be a biography of Taylor Swift. I really wanted to just talk about the things that I've been thinking through about how she has become who she has and why I don't think some of this is replicable at all, right? So I think I was able to do that. And again, I really want to hear from you guys what your thoughts are about this. I really feel like this is like I said, why I love popular culture so much, that when we're talking about things in popular culture, we're really not talking about those things. We're talking about things that are bigger than that, things that are more particular to us. But pop culture gives us a way to truly get to that, right? So thank you for listening to the episode. I really appreciate it, and I think I want to leave you guys with this. There will be bigger stars, there will be smarter executives, there will be better vocalists, but there will never be, in my thinking, another artist who merges confessional songwriting, event scale superstardom, corporate foresight, decade spanning narrative control all at once. Taylor Swift isn't just successful, she's historically specific. She's a singularity. If this episode made you think differently, please comment. If you disagree, comment louder, but always respectfully. Like I said, I will always appreciate everybody for following and sharing the show. Please subscribe and share this episode with someone who asks about Taylor Swift online. I really want to know what they think of my thoughts that I've been able to put here today. Because whether you love her or hate her, you are already part of the conversation. This is Losing the Plot. Till next time, stay crowned.